Travis Scott grew up as a kid with big dreams, from looking up to Kanye West to eventually surpassing his idol in monthly listeners. Travis has established himself as one of the biggest names in hip-hop, but being a superstar wasn't enough. Travis wanted to build something special, a sound, a movement, an empire. From there, he launched his own label, Cactus Jack Records, in 2017, a platform to give spotlight to rising new talent and to shape the sound of a new generation. Okay, let's just skip that part. But what makes the Jackboys collective truly stand out? Well, their insane diversity in production. Each member has their own unique sound and aesthetic. Today, I will be breaking down the different production techniques used by each artist. So get some popcorn and a drink, maybe some lemonade, or even a bagel. Okay, let me stop. Anyways, let's jack some noise! First member of the Jackboys collective is of course the creator himself, Travis Scott. Now Travis has become known for his dark, cinematic production. Today we are going to be making something similar to Champagne and Vacay, mixed with a bit of that classic Travis Scott sound. Now, when making beats, sometimes I can go a bit overboard, and I can't even lie, this is one of those cases. So just to simplify things, we're going to split this beat into 3 different sections. The first half of the intro, second half of the intro, and the actual beat. Taking a look at the first half of the intro, the first thing I did was I started with these very basic chords. And I layered those chords with this pad right here. And when making these dark and ambient Travis Scott beats, Analog Labs is going to be a go-to plugin. Guys, Analog Labs is the GOAT for these types of beats. Then to give the melody a bit more character, I added this ambient texture from Arcade. Then the final thing I put on the intro was this ominous sounding lead. And all together, the first half of the intro sounds like this. See guys, we just got started and that shit already sounds hard. Now if you listen to around this mark right here in Champagne and Vacay, you can hear the intro kind of start to build up. So I wanted to do that to my beat, so building off of the first half of the intro, we're just gonna add a few more elements. First thing I did was I layered the pad once again with the piano. And then layer the chords one more time with this synth right here. Finally, I added this sub bass. Then taking inspiration from 2000 Excursion, I found this drum loop on Looperman and I pitched it down by 1200 cents. And just to make the drum sound a bit more grittier, I added this guitar rig right here. And the final thing I did on the intro was this cool kind of delay effect. Now, I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't know how to explain this shit, but watch this video right here if you guys want to know how to do this. And all together, the second half of the intro sounds like this. Oh, and you guys heard that drum? Yeah! And now finally moving on to the actual beat. I took a lot of components from the intro, but just kind of spiced them up a little bit. So the first thing I did was I kind of just changed the chords up a bit. This is what the chords look like in the intro, and this is what they look like now. I did the same thing to the pad, and I added this synth layer in the background. I also kept the same ambient texture from the intro, but I just added a few guitars. The first guitar I found on Looperman and it sounds like this. I added this kind of guitar lead right here. Then this final guitar. Now moving on to the drums, I wanted to take inspiration from 2000 Excursion. So instead of adding a kick and a sub bass, I put an 808 pattern. And a bit of percussion just to give the drums a bit more bounce. And finally put that all together and you should have something that sounds like this. 2017, Travis Scott would finally sign his first official artist, Sheck Wes. At the time, Sheck Wes had been gaining massive traction as his hit song Mo Bamba really began to take off. Travis capitalized off of this hype and recruited the then rising star. He would then go on to feature on Travis Scott's highly anticipated album, Astroworld, providing the hook for the song No Bystanders with Juice WRLD. He would then carry the momentum further and drop his first official album, Mudboy, which features some of his biggest songs to this day, such as Live Sheck Wes, WESPN, and of course his big hit song, Mo Bamba. I wanted to make something ambient like ILMB, Gmail, and Chippy Chippy, because I feel like those songs really capture that Sheck Wes type of sound. On the contrary to the last beat we just made, these beats are so easy to make, and I'll show you guys just how easy it is to make these beats. The first thing you want to do when making these beats is find a very ambient sounding pad, and just play one chord. You don't even have to play any other chords, just play one chord. I then copied that exact same chord and played this ARP right here at the end of the melody. I then took inspiration from Gmail and I layered the chords one more time with this sporadic sounding ARP. And honestly, for the melody, that's really it, guys. I'm telling you, these are probably the easiest beats you'll ever make. The most important parts of these beats by far are the drums. Now these are also very simple yet very bouncy. You want the 808s to be very bouncy, so don't be afraid to add a lot of notes. I took inspiration from I Love My Bitch, and guys, I can't even lie, this 808 kind of sounds very similar. Listen to this. And when you put it all together, you should have a beat that sounds like this. As Mo Bamba continued to take off, Travis directed his focus back home, Houston. Around this time, a small local artist was beginning to build buzz around the city. Travis would take notice of this artist and put him as a surprise feature on Astroworld on the song Can't Say. This artist of course being Don Toliver. For this beat, I wanted to go the more melodic route and make something similar to New Drop, mixed in with a little bit of something like No Comments. So just like the Travis Scott beat, this beat is split into 3 different sections. But to start things off, let's just start with section 1, which is inspired by New Drop. Similar to the other beats we made, the first thing you want to do is make some very simple chords. And layer your chords with a pad. I layered the chords a 3rd time with an ARP just to give the melody a bit more rhythm. And just like New Drop, we're gonna need a vocal sample, so I made this in Arcade. All you gotta do is Now the drums for this section are actually very easy. There's only 3 sounds. First thing I added was this kick, and with your kick, all you want to do is right click and press 4-step, and it's gonna make a pattern like this. And just some rim shots, and a bouncy sub bass. All together, the first half sounds like this. The second section is pretty much just a bridge, which transitions into the 3rd section. I used the same chord, pad, and ARP from the last section, but I just added 2 things. First, I added this kind of fluttery texture in Arcade, and this vocal, and then this bass guitar. And all together, this is what the bridge sounds like, and I'm actually just gonna let it play and let it drop into the 3rd section, just so you guys can hear a bit of what it sounds like. And yeah, see guys? Just imagine Don Toliver singing on that shit. That shit is a banger! Moving on to the 3rd section, again, we're keeping the same chords, pad, and ARP, just adding a few more layers. First thing I did was I took inspiration from No Comments and I added an organ, some ambient textures, this kind of guitar lead thing, And finally the drums. Now with the hi-hats, instead of doing a two-step like this, I pretty much just did this. Altogether the beat sounds like this. I'm gonna let it play a bit just so you guys can hear both sections together. Shortly after Astroworld, Toliver would officially sign to Cactus Jack Records and go on to become the most successful signee of Travis, consistently dropping hit after hit. Fast forward to the end of 2019, the trio would come together to release the first Cactus Jack collective tape, Jackboys. This tape would be loaded with superstar features, but the song Gang Gang would feature a somewhat smaller artist that many people may have never heard of before. This artist being Luxury Tax. And in fact, Luxury Tax was actually signed to Cactus Jack Records very early on. However, no public announcement was ever made for it. Luxury Tax met Travis Scott around the days before Rodeo era through Southside and Metro Booming, as he was consistently hanging around the studios.
It was way before Rodeo, Joe. I was there for the whole rodeo.
Oh yeah.
Like, it was like right after like days before rodeo.
Although he's been locked in with many big names in the industry, he doesn't have much music of his own. However, taking a listen to his discography, many of his songs use hard trap beats. So today we're going to be making something similar to his biggest solo song, Sorbet. So just like the Sheck Wes beat, these beats are also very simple to make. Guys, you can make this shit in 2 minutes. First thing you gotta do when making trap beats is make a very simple yet repetitive and catchy melody. I also put the Gross Beat preset Chaos 3 on it just to make the melody sound a bit more choppy. As you can see, once again, the melody really doesn't change. It just repeats the same thing the whole time. And honestly, after that, all you really need to do is add some hard drums. Important thing to remember when making trap beats is you don't have to overcomplicate these. But anyways, when you put everything together, you should have something that sounds like this. While the Jackboys collective began to establish themselves as a powerhouse label in the mainstream, one artist was beginning to dominate the underground scene. From 2019 to 2020, Sofaygo had the underground in a chokehold. He dropped tape after tape, seemingly never missing, went after the powerhouse underground collective Slay World on his own, and seemingly won, and collaborated with Loteka to release his iconic Angelic 7. Then after me, shortly after that, hold guys, he was unstoppable, holy f***. His song Knock Knock would begin to go viral on TikTok, along with Angelic 7 and After Me starting to gain a lot of traction. Sofaygo was considered by many as the next to blow, the consensus #1 overall pick in sports terms. And the team lucky enough to draft this upcoming talent was none other than Travis Scott and Cactus Jack Records. And in 2021, the two camps made it official. Many mainstream fans may not know this, but Sofaygo was actually a very early pioneer of the rage sound, even before Trippie and Cardi dropped Mr. Rage. The rage sound has evolved over the years. However, I am going to be showing you guys how to make a 2021 rage beat, as these beats capture Faygo's high energy sound the best. We're going to be making something like Contest because, well, it's a rage beat. When making rage beats, Serum is going to be your go-to plugin because you want to use very virtual and synthetic sounds. So the first thing I did was I pulled up a synth in Serum and I made these chords. Once again, we're going to layer our chords with a pad just to give the melody a bit more, you know, a bit more girth. You know, just to make the melody a bit more fatter and you know, bigger and... Then once you have your chords, you're going to want to add a lead, but don't go overboard with your lead. Make sure it's something simple and catchy for the listener to get stuck in their head. Some leads slide into one another, so instead of just doing this, you want to have the notes kind of overlap each other so they can slide into each other. So for example, this note is going to slide into this note, if that makes sense. Let me just play it, you guys will hear it. If you listen to Contest, this was very apparent because that shit was sliding everywhere. And finally, I just added this counter lead. Now once you have your melody, all you want to do is add some simple trap drums. Once you put everything together, you should have something that sounds like this. After signing to Cactus Jack, it seemed like the sky was the limit for Sofaygo. However, that wasn't the case, and unfortunately, the complete opposite. From 2021 to 2022, the Jackboys crew took a turn for the worst. What seemed to be a rising empire began to collapse in front of us. In November 2021, the Astroworld tragedy would unfortunately strike. This not only affected Travis's image, but Cactus Jack as a whole. Because of this tragedy, it is believed that Sofaygo's upcoming album, Pink Hearts, was delayed until the dust settled. See, the problem with Sofaygo was that his fans were being used to Fed music constantly. I mean, take a look at his early discography, look how many songs he released. But after signing to Cactus Jack, that consistency just stopped. And along with the Pink Hearts delay, fans began to grow impatient. Now moving on to Toliver, he would release a music video a few months after the Astroworld tragedy. However, many fans started to realize something fishy. His whole comment section was filled with bots, leaving many to question Toliver's success. Was he really as big as portrayed? Or has his status been boosted by fake views this whole time? And as for Sheck Wes, well, I mean, nothing really happened to him, to be honest. He just kind of took a break from music to play basketball. However, he would never be able to recapture the momentum he once had from the Mobamba era. The Jackboys stayed somewhat quiet for the rest of the year until November 2022, when Sofaygo finally released his highly anticipated Pink Heart. Now, long story short, this project will be a complete disappointment, not just numbers-wise, but sonically as well. Guys, as a longtime Sofaygo fan, when I heard this shit, I think I actually started crying, guys. This shit was so disappointing. It just seemed like everything was going wrong for the Jackboys crew. So for the remaining year, they all went quiet. It seemed like Cactus Jack Records was seemingly near its end, many writing off the label as a failed project. However, Travis isn't usually one to speak out much when it comes to controversy. And in all honesty, he probably shouldn't. However, Travis responded the best way he knows how, through music. And in July 2023, Travis Scott would finally release his highly anticipated album, Utopia. Utopia would go #1 on billboards and sell almost 500k first week, Jesus Christ. Now, none of the other Jackboys would be featured on this project. However, I see that as a good thing. Travis needed to redeem himself first before being able to help the others. A ship can only sail as far as its captain can take it. Guys, I made that quote. That shit's hard, guys. That's a banger quote. Oh my god. Anyways, fast forward to July 11th, 2025. The crew would unite once again on Jackboys 2. Now, similar to Jackboys 1, the album would be filled with superstar features, and one smaller artist on the song Can't Say. This artist, of course, being Wallie The Sensei. Now, Wallie is a West Coast-based artist who signed to Cactus Jack around May 2025. While Can't Stop is a typical Jackboys guitar beat, most of Wallie's discography actually uses that melodic West Coast sound, similar to Roddy Ricch or Calvin For Real. Now, in all honesty, I don't really make these beats, but I got this loop from one Roger, so shout out to him. But in these melodic West Coast beats, the melodies are actually pretty simple, so to start off, you're gonna want to make some simple chords with either a piano or electric piano. Once again, we're gonna add a pad just to make the melody sound a bit more full. And then to add on to the melody, he added this saxophone at the end, and this guitar. Then the final thing on the melody is this sample right here. A staple in West Coast beats is the bass line. Now, moving on to the drums of these beats, you want the drums to be very simple yet bouncy. But let me just point out a few key things that I realized when listening to these songs. I don't know how to explain it exactly. Somewhere in the drums they'll have this kind of triplet pattern with either a kick or an open hat or both combined. These beats also have percussion in them just to give them a bit more bounce. And the hi-hats typically follow a two-step pattern, just with a little bit of spacing in them and a few rolls in between. Finally, you can add some clap rolls at the end. Altogether, you should have something that sounds like this. The story of the Jackboys collective isn't just about music, it's a story about resilience. From building an empire to facing heartbreak, controversy, and even silence, the Jackboys reminded us that even in the darkest moments, real leaders rise, and true teams rebuild. Through the storms, they never stop. And neither should you, because sometimes, greatness isn't measured by how high you can go, but how willing you are to keep going, even when adversity strikes. This isn't the end for Jackboys, it's just a new chapter. So whatever you're building, keep going, even if things seem hard, because you never know, you may be closer than you think.